Hey there, friend. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro. Why don't you come on in here and let's sit down and study the Bible together today. Today, all this week, we're going to be studying Psalm 32. Psalm 32 is a prayer of David. Really, this psalm is kind of like a nexus, an intersection where lots of different lines come in. There's a town north of here that has an intersection that has five roads that meet in one place. And so there's a great big series of stoplights there that control the traffic in those 5 lanes coming into one intersection. So that's kind of what we have here in this psalm. The first thing is, this is a maskil of David. That's what we have in the introduction. A maskil is a teaching or a contemplative psalm, and it's meant to teach something. So you learn. You want to learn here. And this psalm begins the whole maskil theme in the Psalms because this is the first of 13 maskil psalms in the book of the Psalms. And it uses things like teach and learn in the psalm. So the point here is that we do learn. Of course, when you meditate and you contemplate things, the point of it all is to learn something. And that's what David wants us to have here. This is the second of the penitential psalms. And this is the third in the Psalms, 16 psalms that contain a beatitude. Now, the beatitude in the Psalms, beatitudes in the New Testament, blessed are the poor in spirit, so forth, because Jesus taught that in the Sermon on the Mount. We have those beatitudes. Well, we have beatitudes in the Psalms, and we started with Psalm 1, and we're going to look at Psalm 1 and Psalm 2 here in just a little bit, but we probably need to read our passage first, don't we? So why don't we do that? We're going to read today Psalm 32, verses 1 and 2. Blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Blessed is the man unto whom the Lord imputeth not iniquity, and in whose spirit there is no guile. All right, you see here twice we have the beatitude. Blessed is he, blessed is the man, there in verse 2. So we began these beatitudes in Psalm 1. Right off the bat, we had one. And in Psalm 1, that psalm reads, Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, and then proceeds with the rest of that particular idea. Stands in the way of sinners, sits in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. And then you have Psalm 2, and Psalm 2 contains the second beatitude in the Psalter, and that's at the very end of Psalm 2 in verse 12. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. So blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. And then we come here to Psalm 32. Blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Blessed is the man unto whom the Lord imputeth not iniquity. So you see all these trunk lines come in here. We have the Beatitudes of the Psalms showing up here. We have the first maskil in the Psalms here. We have the second in the penitential Psalms right here. And then having all of those titles and all of those things that we can say about this psalm, it's a great psalm, and it teaches us, I think the force of it is it teaches us about confession. The penitential side of this really, really is important. And it teaches us the importance of confession in prayer. So he says there in verses 1 and 2, the man whose transgression is forgiven, sin is covered, whom the Lord does not impute iniquity, in whose spirit there is no deceit or guile. So we're talking about the problem, right? And the problem common to every man is the transgression problem, is the sin problem. It is the iniquity problem. It is the guile problem. That's in our hearts because we're corrupt. We fell in Adam. And so that nature is a part of us. And then, of course, we've added to that because we've sinned on our own. We've made our own choices, and sinned. And so he says there's a blessing for the man who has his sin covered. Well, we're going to find out about that as we go forward, because remember, this is a penitential psalm, and we're going to find out, well, how does that happen? Okay, so if you'll join me again tomorrow, we're going to jump into verses 3 and 4 here on Daily Dose Radio.